Straight ahead on Law&Crime Daily. Chilling new video release as the accused Sarah Lawrence sex cult leader stands trial in federal court.
I wanted to poison you. And I didn't care about other people.
Plus,
is it fair to say that this isn't a situation that you really want to run?
No.
Is this difficult?
Who would?
the state may soon rest his case as more family members of alleged victims testify against a former ICU doctor charged with the murder of his patients. And dueling lawsuits in the Jussie Smollett hoax attack. The accused attackers move forward with a defamation lawsuit as Smollett's attorneys fire back. But first, a verdict is handed down for the man accused of murdering NBA player Lorenzen Wright.
You're Sharon Wright. You decide to kill your husband. Who are you going to get to help you? Your friend, baby lover, Billy Turner.
Law&Crime. After less than 3 hours of deliberation, a jury hands down the verdict in the trial of slain basketball player Lorenzen Wright.
This is Billy Ray Turner. Stand, please, sir. This verdict reads as follows. State of Tennessee versus Billy Ray Turner, docket number 1705881, count 1, first-degree murder. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in count 1 of the indictment. Count 2, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. The verdict reads as follows. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder as charged in count 2 of the indictment. Count 3, criminal attempt first-degree murder. The verdict reads as follows. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of criminal attempt first-degree murder as charged in count 3 of the indictment. And this verdict and jacket is signed by the foreperson.
For that verdict, Turner will receive life in prison, which amounts to 60 years in the state of Tennessee. But he could be eligible for release after 51 years. Judge Lee Coffey announced Turner will be sentenced for the 2 other counts within 45 days. All this stems from the 2010 murder of NBA player Lorenzen Wright. Turner was arrested 7 years after Wright's body was found and the murder weapon was recovered from a Mississippi lake. In closing arguments, prosecutors point to the finger at Wright's ex-wife, Cheryl Wright, who they say recruited Turner to kill her ex-husband. They argued she was after the basketball player's life insurance payout.
There isn't a 1-800 hitman hotline. So if you're Sharon Wright, you decide to kill your husband, who are you going to get to help you? You can't just go down to Home Depot and ask around for murderers. So maybe you ask your cousin, people from church, maybe somebody you trust, maybe somebody that's at your house all the time. Someone, per his statement, you've had sex with at least once. Someone you've had phone contact with 186 times during a 30-day period. That works out to about a little over 6 times a day. Who do you trust? Who are you going to get to help you? Your friend, baby lover, Billy Turner.
In its summation, the defense argued the state had not met its burden of proving the case beyond a reasonable doubt.
What we wanted to show is his demeanor. You look at him and you see, and make your decision on whether or not this guy eating ice cream and cake with his church folks is in a few hours going to sit up and meet this guy on a dark road and kill him. Has anybody gotten you past unlikely? Has anybody gotten you past maybe not? Has anybody gotten you past perhaps? Perhaps Billy did it because he loaned his car for a couple of weeks. Perhaps he wanted to facilitate a murder without there being any conversation from or testimony rather from the witness stand saying that he agreed that he wanted this man killed.
All right, perhaps my good friend and friend of the network, forensic death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan and Terry Ossick can shed light on this verdict. Joseph, there was a lot of forensics in this case, from a gun in a lake to an autopsy. But which piece of forensics evidence stuck out to you as the most important in terms of incriminating evidence?
Well, I think that it's probably going to be this weapon that was recovered from the lake and putting it into the hand of one of the Confederates in this particular conspiracy. at the end of the day, when those rounds are recovered and you can tie those projectiles back to that specific weapon that admittedly was used in the commission of this homicide, I think that's a damning bit of information. You couple that with the electronic evidence relative to, phone records and all this sort of thing. It's a really steep mountain for the defense to climb.
Fair to say it would probably be the smoking gun in the case.
Yeah,
Now,
you're right.
Terry, what was your reaction to the verdict, and did you expect it to come this fast?
You know what, Brian? I was not surprised by the guilty verdict, but I was a little surprised that it took so quick to make that decision. There was a lot of evidence to sort out here. There were so many parts. First of all, there were 3 co-conspirators. You had Shira, and you had her cousin Jimmy, and you had the defendant Billy. So they all had conflicting stories, or at least parts of their stories were convicting. And then even within each of their own stories, there was conflicting information. So the jury would have had to sort that out. And like Joseph mentioned, there's that gun, figuring out who actually shot that gun, who actually threw the gun into the water. So it is a lot of information, and I do think the prosecution proved that case beyond a reasonable doubt, but the jury came to the quickest conclusion, and I think it was the right one.
All right, we'll see how that case continues. As you said, more sentencing to follow with those additional counts, and here at Law and Crime Daily, we'll be sure to give you those updates. Still ahead on Law and Crime Daily, an ICU doctor stands trial for the murder of over a dozen patients. But first, the brothers who Jussie Smollett say attacked him file a defamation lawsuit against Smollett's attorney, but they're firing back. Anjanette Levy is live to explain the lawsuits. Welcome back. There's more legal trouble surrounding Jussie Smollett and the 2 brothers who said the actor paid them to carry out a fake crime. But this fight has to do with lawyers on both sides. Anjanette Levy is here with the latest twist in this legal saga.
Brian, the Osundairo brothers testified that Jussie Smollett paid them to stage a fake hate crime against him, and a jury believed them. But this is a totally separate issue. A federal judge has determined that a defamation lawsuit that the brothers and their lawyer filed against Jussie Smollett's attorney can move forward. And in turn, the firm representing Smollett is now suing the Osundairo brothers and their lawyers, claiming malicious prosecution. The Osundairo brothers are suing Jussie Smollett's attorney, Tina Glandian, claiming she made defamatory comments about them in interviews with NBC News and ABC News. Glandian works for Garrigus & Garrigus, which is headed by famed criminal defense attorney Mark Garrigus. The Osundairo brothers claim the defamation occurred in March of 2019, when Glandian suggested the brothers could have worn white makeup on their faces when they attacked Smollett.
Obviously, you can disguise that. You could put makeup on. There is actually, interestingly enough, a video. I think police did minimal investigation in this case. It took me all of 5 minutes to Google. I was looking up the brothers, and one of the first videos that showed up actually was one of the brothers in whiteface doing a Joker monologue with white makeup on. And so it's not implausible.
Now Mark Garrigus, who has represented everyone from convicted wife killer Scott Peterson and Michael Jackson to Chris Brown, has filed his own suit against the Osundairo brothers and their lawyers. Garrigus claims malicious prosecution by the lawyers for filing the defamation suit in the first place. He calls it frivolous. Now, attorney Gloria Rodriguez told me that the lawsuit that Mark Garrigus has filed against her, the Osundairo brothers, and their other lawyers is absurd, and she said that would be her only comment on the lawsuit. Meanwhile, Tina Glandian, who is Jussie Smollett's attorney that you saw in the piece, she declined our request for an interview through a spokesperson. Brian?
Thanks, Anjanette. Back to break down the latest in the Smollett saga is forensic investigator Joseph Scott Morgan and Terry Austin. Terry, is anything you've seen from Smollett's lawyer rise to the level of a civil lawsuit against them?
No, I don't think so, Brian. I mean, unless we see some additional evidence, what we've seen so far does not rise to defamation. They would have to prove that the lawyers actually knowingly made false statements and that those statements damaged their reputation. And based on what we've seen so far, the attorney made a statement, but she said it could have been whiteface based on when she Googled. She didn't really basically make a statement of fact, and who knows if she thought it was true or not, but it doesn't seem like she knowingly made it. More importantly, the Osundairo brothers would have to show damage to their reputation. And Brian, as far as I'm concerned, they themselves have already damaged their reputation when they helped to stage this fake crime.
All right, Joseph, I know you don't make false statements, but let me ask this question. You're a professor, investigator, scientist, interviews, podcasts. What are your thoughts on especially a lawyer being sued for what they've said in an interview while representing a client?
Yeah, you know, for me, this is again continuing on with this nonsense. This is what it comes down to. I think how they would be best served is to recede back into the night from which they came, and not press this any further, because it's a waste of time and money. And I've got to tell you, they're running the risk right here of walking straight into the teeth of this lawsuit, this counterclaim that's been placed upon them. They could really wind up paying in the end.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how it all plays out. And Jeanette, let's go back to Jussie Smollett. What do we know about what he's up to now?
Well, we know that he got out of jail after serving just about 6 days of his 150-day sentence. He appealed, went to the state appellate court, which said that he could post bail, which he wasn't really required to post any bail. He was let out on his own recognizance, and he could be out on bail pending an appeal. This isn't a violent crime. So Jussie Smollett has been pretty quiet since his sentencing, other than, you know, what we saw during that hearing where he said he wasn't suicidal, things like that. Now his brother has been posting on his Instagram account saying that his brother, Jussie, is innocent and that they need to keep pushing forward with this appeal. Jussie Smollett's brother also said he thinks like basically the noise the public has been making on behalf of his brother is helping, and they seem very optimistic that this appeal is going to go through and that they will win. So it'll be interesting to see if that indeed happens and whether or not Jussie Smollett will ultimately end up serving the rest of his sentence, that about 144 days or so that's left on it.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this saga all ends. Will it be no conviction, reversal? Will he serve his time? Well, of course, we'll keep eyes on it here at the Law and Crime Network. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, disturbing video gives us a look inside the alleged Sarah Lawrence college sex cult. Plus, we're entering the 5th week of Ohio versus William Husel, the former ICU doctor. Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily. The trial for accused killer and former ICU physician William Husel continues into its 5th week in Columbus, Ohio, as several of the victims' family members testified Monday. Husel faces more than a dozen murder charges for allegedly giving patients excessive amounts of fentanyl and other drugs while he was treating them from 2015 to 2018. His defense team argues he was providing comfort care to terminally ill patients and did not perform mercy killings. Husel faces 15 years to life in prison on each count if convicted. For weeks, the state called medical professionals to testify, some of whom worked alongside Husel when the patients died. On Monday, jurors heard from more family members of the alleged victims, including the son of Jeremy Sue Hodge. He was asked about when he learned of the investigation into Husel and about the police interview as part of the investigation.
Going forward in time, how did you come to find out about the investigation into defendant's care of your mom?
Mount Carmel called me and told me at first they was kind of nonchalant, and told me that, there was medicine given to her that, wasn't supposed to, and they would let me know further notice.
And did you speak again with Mount Carmel after that?
Yes, I did, and that's whenever they told me about the others and everything that was going on.
At some point, did you speak to the Columbus police detectives as well?
Yes, I went downtown and spoke to them.
You would agree with me, would you not, that when you gave the interview to police in February of 2019, that you didn't name Dr. Husel in your interview?
I don't remember whether I said his name because I did not know his name. He was just the doctor.
All right, forensic death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan and co-host Terry Austin are back as we break down the latest in the Husel murder trial. Terry, the defense went after Hodge and other family members because they have wrongful death lawsuits. Is the defense crossing the line in terms of these arguments, or is it helping their case?
You know what, Brian, as a general rule, you have to be really careful when you cross-examine a family member who has had someone who has died at the hands of another. So You want the jury to understand what's going on, but you also don't want them to think you're being insensitive about that loss. So he has to zealously advocate for his client, but he can't look as though he's trying to attack them. And I think the number one impeachment area is that you have this financial connection. So showing that there is a civil suit where you could win money, and especially if you can show that this defendant is guilty and there's a connection there, I think it is something that the defense has to do. And I think he has to do it very carefully, or she has to do it very carefully.
Now, Joseph, whether it be generally or specific to this case, where do you think the line is between comfort care and murder, and has Husel crossed it?
Well, yeah, I think in this case, you've got two choices here. Either you're ignorant of the impact of fentanyl, which I don't think anybody is that works in medicine, or you purpose to do this. That's the only two choices you have. When you begin to think about how powerful fentanyl is, it's roughly 50 times more powerful than morphine. And there's been, witnesses that have been on the stand and said, like, I wouldn't choose fentanyl at all. I wouldn't choose it. I'd choose morphine because all it takes is just a bit, and it can push an individual over the edge, particularly somebody that's already in frail health anyway. So my question is this an opportunistic killer? Is this somebody that's looking at these individuals who knows that they can be victimized because they are the least defenseless among all of us? So it's absolutely chilling to me.
All right, only two options from our very own JSM. We'll see how the jury decides this case, and of course, keep eyes on it as it continues. When we come back, a new video release in the Sarah Lawrence college sex cult case. Plus, a look inside the journal of an alleged cult member, why she says she tried to murder the cult's leader. Of alleged clients who solicited prostitution from a Sarah Lawrence college sex cult member. This as disturbing testimony continues from the former cult member, Claudia Drury. Defendant Lawrence Ray faces 17 charges in the federal case stemming from allegations that he headed a cult at Sarah Lawrence College. Prosecutors say he moved in with his daughter, who was attending the school back in 2010. After that, he befriended several students and abused them for years by extorting money from them, forcing them into sex or prostitution, and holding manipulative therapy sessions. Claudia Drury, an alleged cult member, says Ray forced her into prostitution. Federal jurors were shown a video of Drury as she confessed to an attempted murder of Ray.
I came up inside you 4 times. I brought poison each time.
What'd you bring?
I brought mercury, cyanide, and arsenic. I brought a vial of each time.
And you poisoned me?
Yes.
You said?
Yes. And my mom gave me the poison and I brought it up.
Did she was involved in telling you to poison me? She told you or she didn't tell you?
And she told me.
What'd she say to you?
To kill you. She told me.
I didn't hear you.
She told me to kill you.
And that's what you were trying to do? Well, how come you didn't kill me?
I don't know. I expected to.
Now, Joseph, I don't want to get your comment on the cocktail they were talking about. Instead, I want to focus on this one part where Lawrence Ray supposedly said Drury put mercury on the door handles to kill him. It sounds a little Home Alone-ish. But could that have even killed Lawrence Ray?
No, without protracted long-term exposure. Mercury is in fact a heavy metal. It's been known to be used as a poison, but in order to facilitate that, it would not be used transdermally, where he's talking about painting doorknobs and all this sort of thing, and transdermally taking it on board, that she had the foresight. Not only did he talk about killing her, trying to kill him, but he also intimated that she was painting the door handles in order to kill nurses or some other group of people. This whole thing sounds staged and coerced on his part. She seems like she's under duress. This is a horrible, horrible case.
Absolutely. Now, Terry, Tuesday marked the second time Ray was taken away from the courtroom on a stretcher. How do you think this is affecting the case now and maybe even going forward?
No question that Ray's health is a very serious issue. The fact that he's been removed twice is a huge problem. He has to be competent to stand trial. That not only includes his mental competency, but also his physical competency. So it means he has to understand these proceedings against him, but he has to assist counsel with his defense. If he is not physically able to do that, the case is not going to be able to proceed. And we know already that the case has been delayed for quite some time. When you think about COVID and all the other issues that we're talking about, justice might not be served for a very long time. And I think that with his health being a huge issue, the case might actually have to have a mistrial.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes along, and hopefully his health gets better so that we can see an end to this trial. JSN, Terry, thank you very much. And thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.